Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and sorry the video uploads have been a little erratic of late, but I am going to try to fix that. Today I am sailing in the Tier 7 premium Polish cruiser, the Blyskawica, and one of the main reasons I'm putting this video out is to talk about the stealth changes and detection changes with 0.6.3. I know a lot of people don't care, but there's enough out there who think it's ruined the game that they're stepping away, and I'm hoping maybe this video can help show them that there's ways to compensate and it really doesn't matter. So why the Blyskawica? Well, right out the door, when you bought this ship, it could stealth fire. And then as you put on, modules and captain skills, you actually got yourself a pretty decent window. Around 3 kilometers, 3.2 I think. Which is a lot of room for a destroyer at this tier, and because the Blys has great gun trajectory, you can sit out at 13, 14 kilometers and hit things reliably. So I chose her because it's one of those ships that is incredibly heavily affected by the bloom changes. Now you fire, your detection is your maximum gun range. And there's been people who have postulated that, oh well, destroyers should just not upgrade their guns. There's no reason to go for longer range guns because, it just means you'll be detected from further. And I think it's all a bunch of hoopla. Anyways, as you can see, it is a tier 9 game. I am small, but it doesn't really worry me. As long as I play smart and position myself well, only 1 or 2 ships is going to have a shot at me at any time. And you'll notice I've still only got 3 smokes. I haven't retrained this commander. I don't have superintendent because I don't really plan on using it. So off the bat here, I decide I'm going to capture A. It's not a very good cap to go to normally. It's too separated from the majority of the battle. So if you're a bigger ship and you come up here, you'll often be left without any real shots at targets. But being low tier destroyer, I figure I can come here and get it. So I loop around, I throw out my smoke because there's a couple bombers right overhead who still drop but completely miss. And well, now that I've got smoke, I'm going to sit in it. And you'll notice the handy smoke timer. Built into the game, you got to go into your controls and settings, turn on smoke timer, and it's there. It's part of the game now. And you don't have to remember in your head anymore. It tells you when your first puff is going to start dissipating, and it does this weird yellow and red thing for the remainder of them. But it's really quite handy. So off the bat there, I got a couple fires, but they were both put out, and now I've got a Scharnhorst to shoot at. And, equal tier opponent here, I'm going to work on him. But you'll notice my aim is actually up at the Azumo. And despite the Scharnhorst still being targeted, I am shooting the Azumo. And that's because the Azumo put my first fire out. So obviously, if I can relight a fire on her, it's going to stay, it's going to burn for damage. Looking at the timer, starting to run out of time on this smoke. 10 seconds. Gotta get moving pretty shortly here. And hopefully get a fire there. I don't manage it. So back to the Scharnhorst, who has let my fire burn so far. And the other thing you'll notice, a lot of the team has come up here, but surprising amount of the enemy team has kind of also worked their way up here, so it's not all bad news. So right here you'll notice I'm kind of opening range a little. This isn't to go stealth or anything, I just don't want to be inside 10 kilometers. I've always considered 10k that kind of close range versus long range break. And in the Blys, if you stay outside of it, and really in any destroyer, if you stay outside 10 kilometers and you keep your rudder moving and altering your speed, you're a very hard target to hit. It doesn't matter what nation you're from. You're going to be hard to hit. And just by staying at those ranges, you pretty much negate ships firing at you. And for the most part, a lot of ships on this enemy team aren't going to fire at me. Because, you know, why fire at a destroyer that's a maybe hit when you've got, you know, a couple cruisers and battleships right over my shoulder who are almost stationary that are easy hits. As you can see, the one Scharnhorst getting finished off. Now, I am a little close to this hipper who came around the corner, but I just kept myself turning. One shell hit, but it's going to happen. And I've got another smoke, so I'm going to use it. And I'm using it because that hipper is too close. Once again, there's planes overhead, so I have no way to disengage. So I'm doing so with my smoke. And I've just got those AA guns firing, helping my teammates out, and I really am hoping those planes get taken out really before I have to leave this smoke. You can see the hipper's backing off. I've got him on fire, and already about 7 minutes in, 6.5 minutes in, I'm up to 42,000 damage, and it's all guns and fire. And that's one of the reasons I always loved the Blys. She's always been capable of putting a ton of damage out, and she still is. I've played 3 or 4 games in her since this patch, and I've had 2 that have been well over 100k, and another 2 that have been around the 50k mark. So, you know, with the right skill set and the right mentality about how to approach things, you know, it doesn't matter that my bloom is going out to the max range of my guns. And I said the same thing when I featured that Izumo video, that, or not Izumo, Zhao video, that I really didn't think it was going to change things. You know, the Zhao can still be a very effective kiting ship because at those ranges that she's at, speed and rudder are all you need to avoid shells. And some smart placement of islands in relation to your ship, you'll be able to shoot without things spotting you anyways. And that's the other big thing with destroyers, is just put yourself in the right position and really manage where land is between you and your enemies, and you can negate the changes. And in a way, that kind of raises the skill cap of the game, you know. I would say sitting just outside, you know, stealth range and firing, a lot of times you're going to be putting yourself in a position that doesn't help your team. Now obviously here, I'm interested in opening the range. I've worked a couple of those ships down with my fires and just gunfire in general, but I want to start kiting them. You know, I want to put them in a position where they're going to have a really hard time focusing me down and my friendlies. And you'll see a couple ships fired at me, they all missed. I'm at those kind of ranges where you're not going to reliably hit a destroyer. Occasionally they may get a shelling. They'll, you know, you're going to get lucky. It's the same with shooting at cruisers at really long ranges. You're going to get lucky, and people may hit you from time to time. But for the most part, you can manage it. And that's actually kind of what I've heard about the French cruisers at the high tier. They're very good kiting ships, and you do really have to keep yourself maneuvering because the armor is pretty much non-existent at tier 10. And occasionally you're going to take a citadel, but you can manage it, and one citadel you can manage. It's when you sail in straight lines and give enemies easy shots that you're going to pay. So the target I kind of want to focus on here is going to be this Izumo until it's lit on fire. You can see the enemy's got a fire on it, so I'm hoping I can as well. And you'll notice me managing my position. He's getting inside that 10 kilometers. I've turned out to try to open the range again. I want to keep him at a minimum of 10k. And because his guns were coming my way, I decided to use my final smoke. And part of the choice in this smoke was there's a lot of other targets in range. Too often you see destroyers waste a smoke when there's only one guy to shoot at. Well, what happens if that guy gets destroyed? You're just going to sit in your smoke for the next minute and a half doing nothing? No, you want to make sure you have targets to shoot at. Which I definitely do here. This Ismo being my primary one. And then I've got that Iowan Hipper who I hurt earlier to work down as well. And I just crossed through the 200 shell count. And I'd say another thing this game is actually a really good example of is how to make yourself meaningful as a low tier ship. And I've had this discussion a bit before as well. And when you're not high tier, when you're a tier 7 and a tier 9, your role changes. It doesn't matter what class of ship you're in, even in a battleship. If you're BB, a tier 7 BB in a game like this, you fall to second line. You support your main battleships, help them do more damage to the targets, but you're not really the main battleship force. The same is true of cruisers and destroyers. Now, granted, there was only one other destroyer on the enemy team in this game. It was an Udaloy. So I wouldn't have really wanted to have come across him, but at least when not firing, I've got better detection than him, so I can slip away when need be. And I've almost got this Hipper. Just keep shooting. More shells hit. I leave him on 12 hit points. I can see the torpedo drop in the water, but my shells get there first. Picking up the kill. First one, 87,000 damage in. And I'm right back onto that Ismo, who, well, he's dead. He ate airdrop torpedoes. So clearly my next target here is gonna be this Baltimore. Now, I'm trying to decide whether I want to shoot, whether I want to open range, so I'm kind of holding my fire here, because I will go invisible. And there I do, although it looks like the Baltimore may have had time to range in, but misses me, and part of that just comes down to the range. So what I'm going to do here is try to get myself into a range where and position where I think I can work him over without eating too much. So I'm right on that 10-kilometer mark. He's taking fire from other sources, so he's going to have to be careful and choosy about how he angles himself, and hopefully that benefits me. But shells coming my way, rudder was already over, they all miss. And this whole time I'm just going to be doing big S-weaves back and forth. And he's never really going to hit me too hard, even as I start to close in a little bit later in this fight, because I will hit a point here pretty shortly where I say, screw it, I'm taking this guy down. And part of that decision comes because we're really far ahead and we're getting all the caps. So I'm not too worried about losing the game. Also, I kind of know what this ship is capable of, and I've got a cruiser now on less health than I have. And that's a fight I can take. You can see that last volley doing 1400 damage. When my shells are hitting, they do enough damage, and with my rate of fire compared to the Baltimore's, you know, I've got about double his rate of fire. Baltimore's 10 seconds, I'm 5.4, 5.7 there. You know, I'm going to be able to work him down pretty significantly in the time he gets each volley off, and as long as I don't give him any juicy angles, and you'll see myself maneuvering here, getting my bow back in each time he fires, I eat a bit of damage, but he's eating just as much, and I'm getting him close to being dead. Bow coming over again, get the hull partially angled, though I did eat a lot of damage that time. I was a little late on the rudder, but there's the fire, and one or two more hits here, he is a goner. There he goes. I eat a final volley, repair myself, and I'm about to cross the 100,000 damage threshold. They've got a Colorado and the Essex left, and I hold my fire here for God knows what reason. I should just be shooting at one of them. You know, the Essex is already in range. Maybe I just didn't see it at the time and was focused in on trying to get in close to this Colorado to start burning him down. But while I close them, you know, nothing about this game would have been made better with me being concealed and firing, because it just didn't matter. I was lit by planes a lot of the time. You know, I was inside of stealth fire range a whole bunch of the time. It hasn't changed the gameplay for me, and that's kind of how I feel a lot. You know, stealth fire isn't a mechanic that you should be leaning on a whole bunch. There's some situations, like if you're the final ship and there's 3 or 4 people chasing you, sure, it was useful then because you could just let them chase you and slowly work them down. But for the majority of the games and the majority of gameplay, it doesn't make a difference. Proper position selection, keeping your rudder moving, they're all you need. And if you know you're going to be detected when you fire, you know, you're not going to get surprised. There were definitely times in previous patches where I thought, haha, I can get a free shot off at this guy. I take the shot, turns out someone was a little closer to me, unspotted, I got detected, and I got wrecked because I only had a couple hundred hit points. So in a way it might make you a more cautious, thorough player. But with the Colorado sank and just this Essex to chase down, this game is in the bag, and I'm hoping I can get the kill before we wind up capturing. And yet again, he's spotted and I'm not shooting. Clearly something in my head just told me, yeah, you get a little closer before you shoot. Got the front turrets going, the rear ones coming around slowly, and just hoping I can get a 3rd kill. Really cap off a good game. But the game ends before I manage to get the kill, but it's still a great game. 351,000 credits, 8681 XP, 102,000 damage, crap ton of shells, no torpedoes. I only launched 1 set because I only got that close 1 time. And this is a very open map, and probably one of the situations where having stealth fire, a lot of people would have relied on it. But hopefully this serves as proof that you don't need to. And just by keeping your range and using your rudder, you can completely negate ships shooting at you to the point where they just won't shoot at you. And that's really the big difference. If you don't make yourself an easy target, people are going to ignore you because they hate wasting shots, especially battleships. And I managed to top the team in this one, which in a way shouldn't be a surprise because of how much damage I did to tier 9 ships. And being a tier 7, you get a lot more XP hitting those bigger targets. And sometimes it's fun to be the small ship for just that reason, because you can come out with some amazing experience. And part of me just thinks it's a little more annoying when, you know, some guy in a tier 9 just can't finish you off when you're in a tier 7. And really, they couldn't. That Baltimore was proof. And look at the damage across the board. I just kind of stacked some up on a whole bunch of different targets, just supporting my team. I got the 2 kills and, you know, maybe could have had 1 more here or there, but ultimately it was about a support role. And I really do feel I helped my team out in this match. I worked a lot of targets down. I made them burn their damage controls. I relit fires, got a whole ton of damage from fires there. And it paid off, taking home just about 300,000 credits, 8,600 experience, and a whole ton of Elite Commander XP. Anyways, I really do hope you guys enjoyed this and can maybe take away a couple tips on how to play DDs in the new, you know, full bloom World of Warships that we have. If you found it useful or enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys later.